Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Cutter Top 10 Sports video. And today we're going to be looking at the top 10 Super Bowls of all time. Of course, me rocking out the Tom Brady jersey and all that. Good old number 12 and everything. And the topic, of course, is football because football is pretty much the only sport that the numbers are on players' shoulders. Baseball doesn't have that. Basketball doesn't have that. Some hockey teams have done that before with the numbers on the shoulders and all that. But anyway, yeah, got it. All that. Oh, so yeah, I'm just remembering I should be doing some other shit too. But anyway, um, so we're gonna take a look at the top 10 Super Bowls of all time. It's such a contentious list. There's a lot of great honorable mentions. So here are three honorable mentions. Honorable mention one is Super Bowl 10 from 1976, Steelers Cowboys, the first time they met in the Super Bowl. It was amazing. It was the 10th anniversary of the Super Bowl, and it was just classic football, clutch performances, and Percy Howard almost making himself a household name, even though that people don't know who the frig he is. Super Bowl 32 also got an honorable mention. Broncos Packers. John Elway finally winning the Super Bowl after three attempts to miss. He missed in 1987, 1988, and 1990. People forget that, yeah, Broncos have lost four Super Bowls, but the first one was not with Elway. But Elway, on the fourth time trying, does the job, and it was the year after the Broncos choked in the playoffs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Elway did his job, finally win a Super Bowl, and Pat Bowlen, the owner, saying, "This one's for John." And Elway did what Marino didn't do, the class of '83, win a Super Bowl, or even Jim Kelly. He had the helicopter run, the fearless run that got him down at the 6 yard line. That was amazing against the defending champion Packers. And Super Bowl 52 also is an honorable mention. Not because the Patriots lost to the Eagles, but it was a decent one, but it didn't make the top 10. Nick Foles with the Philly special, which fooled the Patriots and fooled me, obviously. It was a shootout, and Philly deserved to win the title, even though, as a Pac Man, I can't have that happen. But, oh well, cheers to them. Anyway, number 10 for the Super Bowls is Super Bowl 3 from the Jets versus the Colts. I know it's the oldest and pretty much like Super Bowl 3 should be higher up on this list, but it's for the drama of the Super Bowl, not basically the background. If it's by historical background, it probably would be in top 5. So the AFL, or the American Football League, was trying to challenge for NFL supremacy, and the first two times they tried with the Chiefs and the Raiders in the Super Bowl, they lost to the Packers. So the AFL felt slighted, and everyone thought the NFL was better than the AFL. However, a plucky team from New York, the Jets, who beat the Raiders in the AFC title game, actual AFL championship game, sorry, took on the seemingly invincible Baltimore Colts, who only had one loss in the NFL season. And the big thing for the Baltimore Colts was that Johnny Unitas was not at quarterback. He was actually hurt. Earl Morrall came out of freaking nowhere to lead the team to not only a 13-1 mark, but to an MVP performance. It was basically against all odds. And then on the Thursday at a touchdown boosters thing in Miami, Namath took to the podium and basically guaranteed a victory. Everyone laughed because the Jets were 16-point underdogs and all that. However, the Jets used power running and just unusual defense to stifle Earl Morrall and the Colts, winning 16-7. One of the most enduring images, not just of Namath getting the guarantee and winning it, was the fact that Jimmy Orr was so wide open in the end zone. Why the hell did Morrall not see him? Maybe that would have helped the Colts win. Anyway, nevertheless, it is the biggest Super Bowl moment. It actually brought the AFL legitimacy, and the NFL decided to merge with the AFL. So all the AFL franchises, all 10 of them, were in, and then they added 3 teams from the NFL to the AFL for big money. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore moved to the AFC and all that. Yeah, that was amazing. Number 9 is Super Bowl 49, 2015, Pats and Seahawks. It was just amazing and all that. The Patriots were trying to get back to supremacy. They hadn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years. People forget that for all the times the Patriots were good at in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they didn't get to it. They didn't win a Super Bowl for 10 years. 2005 was the last time we sniffed the Super Bowl. Of course, this is the year that it happened. Of course, if I had to be technical, Super Bowl III would have been the end of the 68 season. But the fact of the matter is that Patriots Seahawks had the Legion of Boom defense, who the previous year crushed Denver in defined powder 43-8. So the Patriots and Seahawks faced each other. Now, unfortunately, I had the misfortune of having to work during Super Bowl 49, working nights at Target, working the night shift at Target. And I was back for the fourth quarter, but I'm like, oh, well, it's no use now. And man, did I miss a great ending. Although I got to watch a lot of highlights and all that. Seattle was driving down the field to try to win the game. It was 28-24 for the Pats. But we all know about the Malcolm Butler interception. But it would not have happened if Russell Wilson didn't throw that nice pass to Jermaine Kearse, who somehow tipped it up, and then somehow the ball landed in him. The Patriots defender could have kicked it away or deflected it away, but it didn't. He caught the ball. Seattle ran to the 1 yard line and should have used Marshawn Lynch because, 1 yard, you got to run. But I think Pete Carroll was trying to catch the Pats off guard. But Malcolm Butler ignited debate for years to come with that interception. I would have basically congratulated Seattle if they had beaten New England and all that. I would have been a true sportsman. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And that was kind of the beginning and the end for Pete Carroll. Number 8 is Super Bowl 23, Niners Bengals 89. This wasn't the first Niners Bengals Super Bowl. 1982 had that, and the Niners beat the Bengals. But the Niners, the most enduring image of that game in 1982 was Dan Buns making that great third down stop on the goal line. Anyway, the Niners and Bengals were battling each other. Cincy had this great fullback named Stanley Wilson, and with rookie Ickey Woods, Cincy's running game actually was legitimized. Whoever Eisen was a good quarterback too. Unfortunately, Stanley Wilson had the misfortune of being caught with cocaine the night before the Super Bowl, being sent home and basically out of the NFL. So the Bengals basically had to use Ickey Woods and some other players and all that. It didn't help matters that Tim Krumrie, number 69 in your playbooks, and I'm not joking, that number, actually had his leg twist in such a terrible way on the second or third play of the game. And people thought he wasn't going to be fit enough to play football, but 4 years later, he was back with the Bengals. And also, one of the most underrated plays in that Super Bowl was Danford Jennings' 96-yard touchdown on a kickoff return for the Bengals. So that was amazing. The Niners were down 16-13. Montana led that 92-yard drive, passes with Rice, and then Joe Montana called the timeout, and then cool as he wanted, Joe Cool's reputation. He says, "Hey, is that John Candy on the sidelines?" It was. So he knew what he was doing. He threw the winning touchdown not to Jerry Rice, because I think everyone expected that, but to John Taylor, who was pretty good himself. And he had that one game in 1989. Well, the 89 season, the next season, the 89 season, he had those two 90-plus yard touchdown receptions, becoming one of a handful of players to do that. But yeah, it was amazing. And that was the end of Walsh's career. As Bill Walsh would, right after the sunset, and then a few years later, play for Stanford, coach Stanford. The whole thing was that, the Niners won and all that. And they did it. Number 7 is Super Bowl 36, 2002, Patriots-Rams. The start of my Patriots fandom. St. Louis had the greatest show on turf. Warner was there as Akeem, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk. The Rams were unbeatable, it seemed to be. They went through the 2002 playoffs pretty well. The Patriots actually went through a Cinderella season. They were 0-2 when Drew Bledsoe went down with an injury thanks to a Mo Lewis hit that got Bledsoe near the sidelines. They had to go with the 6th round pick from 2000 by the name of Tom Brady. And somehow, in some way, Tom Brady led the Patriots to the division title and a magical win in Pittsburgh for the AFC title game. Because everyone thought that Tommy Maddox, who was the XFL MVP, but came forward and made a massive comeback, would be the quarterback. But no, it wasn't. So Kurt Warner was trying for his second Super Bowl in 3 years, and everyone thought the Rams were going to do it, including yours truly. But the Patriots, after the Rams tied it up at 17, went down the field. And John Madden said on the Fox broadcast that maybe New England should slow down and take the game to overtime. But Pat Summerall says, well, just a minute. And then Tom Brady somehow led the team down the field. Vinatieri picked up a 48-yard field goal through the pike, and the New England Patriots won the Super Bowl. A lot of people probably would have seen it coming because, Patriots, Super Bowl, and the whole 9/11 fiasco. But it marked the dawn of the Patriots dynasty. I was so pissed off with the Rams, I decided to become a Patriot fan in 2002 and have gone through a lot of Super Bowl highs and lows. Trust me. But yeah, Tom Brady made a great Cinderella story. Number 6 is Super Bowl 43, 2009, Steelers Cardinals. The Cardinals were a terrible franchise and all that. For all them being part of the NFL since 1920 and all that, they had only sniffed one title. That was in 1947 and all that. The Cardinals franchise went through a lot of hits and misses. They were forced out of Chicago by the Bears, and then they went to St. Louis, becoming the St. Louis Cardinals, even though that there was a baseball team by that name. They had to share the baseball stadium, and the St. Louis team having a few division titles but falling flat in the playoffs. And then they go to Arizona, where football was kind of an afterthought. It was such an afterthought that Arizona balked at hosting. Well, they got the Super Bowl in '93 taken away from them because they refused to do Martin Luther King Day, Junior Day. But Arizona changed his mind and got Super Bowl 30 as a consolation prize. Yeah, the Cardinals franchise sucked. And only in 1998, after winning the final playoff position in the NFC on the final day with a field goal by Chris Jackie, they went into Dallas, shocked the Cowboys, and picked up their first playoff win in 5 decades. But these Arizona Cardinals were different. Larry Fitzgerald was still a great quarterback. Kurt Warner was making another massive comeback from the dead, if you will, for his career. And they took on the steel curtain Pittsburgh Steelers. Arizona may have had the magic moment with Larry Fitzgerald hopefully getting the winning touchdown, but Pittsburgh had 2 good ones. James Harrison at the goal line making a pick 6 before halftime, which was amazing. 100 yards by a linebacker who didn't look like the fastest guy, but blocking's blocking. And then with like a minute left, Santonio Holmes somehow catching the ball from Roethlisberger in the corner of the end zone and toe tapping, meaning his toes tapped into the end zone. You have to have 2 feet in bounds in the NFL to make a catch, and he did. The Steelers won 27-23 and showed their resilience. Number 5 is Super Bowl 34 from 2000, Rams-Titans. This was Kurt Warner's inaugural Super Bowl, and it was amazing. The greatest show on turf had to be built. The Rams were a terrible franchise and all that, not getting to the Super Bowl. Actually, one Super Bowl appearance in 1980 against the Steelers. Nevertheless, the St. Louis Rams were a disaster. 4-12 the previous year in the 98 season. Then 99 comes in, and Trent Green is supposed to be the quarterback of the future. One problem, he got injured preseason, and they have to pin their hopes on Kurt Warner. Every Ram fan was not too pleased with it. But Dick Vermeil, who was coaching the Rams at the time, says, we will rally behind Kurt Warner. And it worked. Kurt Warner, former Arena League football player, NFL Europe player, and also playing for the University of Northern Iowa, and Hy-Vee grocery clerk at night, was determined. And he put on a clinic for the Rams, the greatest show on turf, with great wide receivers such as Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and Asa Keem, like I mentioned, and also the running back Marshall Faulk, who got lucky. The Colts traded him to the Rams because they were pinning their hopes on Edgerrin James. It actually worked out. Edgerrin James was a pretty good running back for the Colts. But Marshall Faulk knew what to do with it. The Rams were close to blowing it in the NFC title game against Tampa. It was a defensive battle, 6-5, when Warner threw a key touchdown pass, not to his main receivers, but to one guy who was unheard of, Ricky Proehl. And it worked. Touchdown for the Rams. They got to the Super Bowl against the Titans, who actually had their own adventures to get to Super Bowl 34 in 2000. The Titans were 13-3. Usually that'd be good for a division title, but it wasn't. They were one win behind Jacksonville in the AFC Central and had to play in the wild card game, hosting Buffalo, the first playoff game of the 21st century after all the brouhaha of Y2K ruined it a bit. The Titans won the game thanks to the music seating miracle, which seemed like a forward pass, but it wasn't. RIP Mike Patrick, who did the call for ABC. The Titans then went on to beat the Colts in the divisional round, went to Jacksonville, and somehow beat the Jaguars. The worst part for the Jaguars, yeah, they lost 2 regular season games and that AFC title game, but all 3 losses were to the Titans. The Titans were doing good. Steve McNair and Eddie George were doing their part to try to counter Warner and Falk. It was a tight game. It was 23-16 Rams after a touchdown pass to Isaac Bruce, and then Kevin Dyson had the ball, stretched out for the goal line, missed by 1 yard. He was 1 yard short. Mike Jones, a generic name, but a generic linebacker, but a hero. By a single yard, the Rams did it and prevented the first Super Bowl overtime. Number 4, Super Bowl 13, 1979, Steelers-Cowboys. Well, the first time was 1976 between these two teams, but 3 years later, it would be big. So many stars and so many Hall of Famers play for both teams. It's amazing. But yeah, Steelers-Cowboys, a lot of people said this was one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. And it showed. The pageantry, the pomp and circumstance, it worked. Bradshaw versus Staubach, Franco Harris versus Tony Dorsett at the running back position. The wide receivers of Dallas with Drew Pearson facing off against John Stallworth alongside Lynn Swann. It was just tit for tat on offense. And the defenses both were pretty good too. Pittsburgh Steel Curtain versus Dallas's Doomsday defense. It was a 35-31 Steelers win. Unfortunately, though, there were a few controversial calls. And the worst part was when Jackie Smith, picked up by the Cowboys for the purpose of being a good tight end for them, had been wide open in the end zone in Miami 10 years after Jimmy Orr was wide open in the end zone, but didn't get the pass. At least Jackie Smith had a chance to catch the pass, but he dropped it. That drop ruined Dallas because instead of getting 7 points for the touchdown, they only got 3 for the field goal. Jackie Smith was the sickest man in America. Thanks a lot for Lundqvist for that call. But yeah, it was amazing how these two teams just battled each other tooth and nail. Number 3 is the 1991 Super Bowl. Super Bowl 25 between the Giants and Bills. The silver anniversary of the Super Bowl did not disappoint its destination. In Tampa at the old Sombrero, Tampa Stadium, it was the Giants and the Bills. Buffalo was not really known for their prowess in the NFL, but thanks to the K-Gun offense and Jim Kelly coming back from the USFL better than advertised, and the wide receiver core of Andre Reed and Don Beebe and a good running back by Furman Thomas, they were pretty much solid. The hurry up offense was just huge for the Bills and all that. The Giants had their problems because Phil Simms went down with an injury in the middle of the season. Jeff Hostetler had to come in, and people were questioning him. The Bills crushed the Raiders 51-3 in the AFC title game to move on to their first Super Bowl ever. Their opponents would be the New York Giants, who survived the 2-time defending champion San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl, in the NFC title game. The Niners had a golden chance, but unfortunately Joe Montana was hit hard by Leonard Marshall and he fumbled. San Fran got the ball back, but Montana was too woozy and basically lost almost a full season because of the hit and lost his pride in San Francisco. Fortunately, the Niners had Steve Young as a backup, a reliable backup, and he did it. Unfortunately, though, Roger Craig made a massive fumble, and the Giants picked it up and then ran downfield for a 40-plus yard field goal by Matt Barr, and the Giants beat the 49ers, ruining the three-peat, as Pat Summerall said. It was 15-13. The Giants didn't need a touchdown. They just needed field goals. The Giants decided, with Bill Belichick as the defensive coordinator and Bill Parcells as the head coach, to figure something out, and they did. They said that Buffalo can't ruin us if they don't have the ball. So they used time of possession, and it was 20-19. Buffalo went down the field, still had a chance, but Scott Norwood had a 47-yard field goal attempt. And with seconds left, he missed it wide right. It was just unreal. Now, Norwood may have missed wide right, but he was host because Buffalo played on turf at Rich Stadium, and usually grass, and they didn't play on grass where Tampa Stadium had it. And a 47-yard field goal is no gimme. I mean, anything over 40 is a crapshoot for these kickers because you got to contend with the wind, field position, and all that stuff. So I don't hate Scott Norwood at all for that. Buffalo, after Norwood got one more season and lost his confidence, got Steve Christie from the Bucks, and Oakville, Ontario was proud, even though Christie never won the Super Bowl, and the Bills are four-time losers. Number 2 is Super Bowl 42, Giants Patriots. A lot of people would be shocked that's not number 1. I would have made it number 1. But no, it's Giants Patriots. It was David versus Goliath. The Patriots were 16-0 in the regular season. They had a few tight games, including against the Giants in the regular season at Foxborough. Or was it at Giants Stadium? Can't remember. I think it was Giants Stadium. But anyway, yeah, Patriots already met the Giants in the regular season and beat them. The Giants were scrappy. Every prognosticator had the Giants losing on their way to the Super Bowl. The Giants had to go to Tampa in the wild card round. People picked the Bucks because it's Tampa and their defense, but the Giants pulled it out. So now they had to play the 1 seed Dallas Cowboys in the NFC playoffs. And everyone thought that Romo and T.O. were going to ruin the Giants. Nope, it didn't happen. And T.O. had that crying fit. That's my team. That's my quarterback. Selfish prick. And then they went to the NFC title game in Green Bay, cold conditions, Brett Favre being Brett frickin' Favre. Unfortunately, in a prelude to what would come a couple of years later in the NFC title game, Favre's bravado ruined his chances. The game was tied. It had to go to overtime, and twice Lawrence Tynes, a former CFLer, if you must know, missed field goals. So Favre and crew had a chance to go down the field, maybe kick a field goal or score a touchdown to go to the Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the Patriots. It would have been nice to see Brady versus Favre. But no, Favre's bravado ruined them, and the Giants picked him off, and then Lawrence Tynes kicked a 40-plus yard field goal to win the game in Green Bay, and it's Giants-Patriots. The Giants used ball control to their advantage, just like their predecessors, the 1991 Giants. The Patriots were up 14-10 when Eli Manning looked like he was going to be sacked. His forward momentum was going to be stalled, and the sack would have been given. However, he managed to get out underneath those tackles and then launched a high ball that David Tyree, who wasn't really much of a wide receiver in the NFL, somehow in some way picked it up off his head, pinned it to his helmet, and made sure Ronnie Harrison didn't touch the ball for either an interception or an incompletion. Plaxico Burress scored the touchdown. Giants win 17-14. It was just amazing to see if you were not a Patriots fan like myself. I was basically numb from that game. I still can't watch Super Bowl 42. I know it sounds pathetic and all that, but that's the way it is. And number 1 is the game that is known as 28-3. Football fans will know what I'm talking about, but to other people, it was Super Bowl 51, 2017, Patriots-Falcons. The Falcons with Matty Ice, a.k.a. Matt Ryan, who was the NFL MVP, were just pulling it through. And Atlanta was going to get to their second Super Bowl in franchise history. 99 was the other time when they lost to the Broncos in John Elway's swan song. Atlanta was up 28-3. The lights were out. For me, as a Patriots fan, basically the lights went out for me, and I basically stopped watching the game and went to do other things. Lo and behold, I missed a great moment. As somehow Tom Brady orchestrated a relentless rally, Atlanta made some boneheaded decisions on offense. Julian Edelman made a fantastic catch in which he made the catch, but then it scored it out, but then he basically claps his hands over the turf, making sure that it didn't drop. Patriots forced overtime at 28-28, the first Super Bowl overtime ever. Not the last, but anyway. James White and the Patriots with the winning touchdown, 34-28. Brady's legacy was cemented, and it basically was the never give up storyline that we all really wanted to hear. And yes, I know it's a Patriots Super Bowl. Am I being biased? No. But I mean, it could have been worse. Atlanta beating New England. It probably would have went on one of the worst Super Bowls of the blowout, but Nevertheless, that was a key Super Bowl for the New England dynasty and proved why New England was back, baby. Really. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.